So, you want to own an airport, or at the very least, you want to understand what actually happens after someone wires billions of dollars and takes control of one. First of all, building a modern international airport from scratch can cost anywhere between $10 to $35 billion. That's more than the GDP of entire countries. A single runway can cost up to $500 million to build, and a major airport hub may need 4 of them running at the same time, landing aircraft every 45 seconds at peak capacity. But here's the strange part. The airplanes are not where most of the money comes from. When people think about airports, they imagine aircraft, terminals, baggage systems. They think the business is transportation. But a modern airport is no longer just a transportation hub. It is a land monopoly, controlling millions of captive customers every single day. Inside that ecosystem is an entire hidden economy. Duty-free stores selling luxury goods at enormous margins. Restaurants paying massive rents for access to exhaustive travelers with nowhere else to eat. Parking structures generating millions every year on land acquired decades ago at government prices. Hotels built directly on airport property, cargo warehouses, real estate developments that have nothing to do with flying at all. And underneath all of this, the land usually isn't even privately owned. In most cases, it still belongs to the government, not the airline, not the stores, not even the airport operator itself. Because in this business, ownership and operation are 2 completely different things. Most major airports run on long-term concession deals, where governments keep the land and private companies get the right to operate it for decades. The operator doesn't actually own the airport. What they own is the right to make money from the movement of millions of people passing through it every year. And that distinction changes everything. Because once you stop looking at airports as just transportation infrastructure and start looking at them as controlled points of human traffic, the economics become completely different. Take Heathrow Airport in London, one of the busiest international airports on Earth. And yet, nearly half of Heathrow's revenue doesn't come from airplanes at all. It comes from retail, parking, food, advertising, property income. The airport earns money every time a passenger buys coffee, every time they buy perfume, every time a car sits parked for 3 days beside the runway. But the most valuable thing the airport controls isn't physical, it's psychological. Airports create captive consumers. Passengers arrive hours early. Security prevents them from leaving. Delays extend their time inside the system. And stress lowers spending resistance. The airport controls the architecture, the walking paths, the lighting, the placement of every luxury store between security and the gate. Now look at Changi Airport in Singapore. Changi stopped behaving like an airport years ago. It built indoor forests, a massive waterfall, luxury retail districts, hotels, entertainment complexes, entire tourist attractions inside the terminal itself. People visit Changi without flying anywhere. The airport became a destination. These airports are no longer competing with other airports. They're competing with shopping malls, hotels, convention centers, and entertainment districts. At that point, the runway is just the mechanism that delivers customers. And then the economics start becoming absurd. The land beneath many major airports was acquired decades ago, often through state authority, at prices that would be impossible today. Governments funded the runways, public money built the highways and rail lines connecting the airport to the city. And when the system was finally complete, the operator inherited all of it and now charges almost everyone who enters the ecosystem. The airline pays landing fees, the retailer pays rent, the passenger pays parking fees, the logistics company pays warehouse fees, the hotel operator pays lease agreements, the advertiser pays for wall space. Every movement inside the airport becomes monetized. And yet, even that isn't the most interesting part of the business. The most interesting part is scarcity. At major airports like Heathrow Airport or Tokyo International Airport, runway capacity is effectively fixed. Building a new runway can take decades of political approvals, environmental reviews, and legal battles, which means takeoff and landing slots become extraordinarily valuable. Airlines have paid tens of millions of dollars for access to a single pair of Heathrow slots, because once access to a constrained airport is lost, it may never be recovered. And this is where airport ownership starts looking less like aviation and more like infrastructure finance. Airlines go bankrupt all the time. Airports rarely do, because airlines compete against each other. The airport collects from all of them. And globally, some of the biggest investors in airports are not aviation companies at all. Organizations managing retirement money for teachers, nurses, and civil servants quietly own stakes in airports across continents because airports generate the kind of long-duration cash flow investors dream about. But the industry does have one real threat. And strangely enough, it isn't another airport. It's the possibility that certain journeys may no longer need flights at all. High-speed rail has already transformed parts of Europe and Asia. On routes under roughly 800 kilometers, modern rail often beats flying in total door-to-door time. No security lines, no baggage systems, no distant airports built far outside city centers. China's high-speed rail network has already destroyed the economic logic behind hundreds of domestic flights. And that matters because many regional airports were built on one assumption, that air travel demand would keep rising forever. Which is why the world's largest airport operators are already repositioning, doubling down on long-haul international hubs, expanding cargo infrastructure, investing in airport real estate that continue generating revenue, even if passenger growth slows. Because the smartest operators understand something fundamental. The airport was never really about airplanes. It was about controlling movement, controlling trade, controlling geography itself. Which is why governments protect airports. Investors fight over them, and infrastructure giants are willing to spend billions just to control one.